A big time rape case hits Corvesa City hard. During the autopsy, I check out the victim's private area. Standard procedure. Nothing weird about it. But my wife, a police captain, loses it right in front of everyone. Don't we have a female medical examiner? You're basically violating the victim all over again. And I'm standing right here. Are you really that pathetic? Just like that, the crowd turns on me. The department caves to the pressure and suspends me without pay. But I still have to show up. I quit on the spot. Here's the thing. Without me, nobody's solving this case, Evan. You've already tanked our year-end reviews. People are showing up at the station demanding answers, Chief Langford said, slamming his fist on the table. Outside, protesters waved signs. Creepy medical examiner Evan Mercer violated the victim's privacy, re-victimized the deceased online. Everyone wanted me gone. I stood my ground, Chief. I followed the rules. The injuries were in her private area. As the medical examiner, I had to start there. That's when Claire walked in and cut me off. Chief, the crowd's getting bigger. We need to discipline him right now. She gave me a look that could freeze hell over. Still think you did nothing wrong? Being married to someone this self-righteous is embarrassing. That stung. I did everything by the book. She's the one who ran her mouth. In front of people who didn't know any better. That's what set off the victim's family. They went ballistic. Called me a hypocrite. Said I didn't belong here. Claire handed over a demotion notice. Chief, I say we demote him and dock his pay. $2,000 a month for a year. That should calm people down. I already drafted it. Just say the word, and I'll send it out. Langford signed it without hesitation.
Claire smirked at me. Oh.
And with all this heat, I'm reassigning you. To protect the other body's privacy. Of course. He tossed a security guard uniform at me. You're stationed outside the morgue. Anything goes wrong in there, you're the first one I'm coming for.
She didn't even look at me.
As her team cleared out my office, all my stuff got thrown out. Even the autopsy report I just finished ended up in the trash. I picked it up and shot her a cold look. Claire, listen up. This case won't get solved without me. Push me out and you'll regret it. During the autopsy, I'd spotted injuries that matched the case from 6 months ago. This was probably a serial killer. But that old autopsy report got destroyed, and the body was cremated. The only record of it was in my head. I was about to explain all this when someone walked in with an entourage. Claire's whole face lit up. She rushed over and linked arms with him. Jules, you finally made it. Everyone's been waiting. The second I got a good look at him, it all clicked.
Now.
I understood why a captain like Claire would make such a rookie mistake, publicly trashing me during the autopsy and getting me disciplined. Julian smirked. Long time no see, Evan. Thanks for keeping Claire warm for me. I'm back now. Your job and your wife. They're both coming back to me. Julian was the guy Claire never got over. His name was the elephant in the room. During our entire 5-year marriage, I thought she'd moved on. Turns out she'd been setting the stage for him this whole time. At the Monday meeting, Langford made a big deal about Julian's arrival. Julian got his PhD from a top university overseas. 12 years in anatomy. I'm sure he'll blow us away. Unlike Evan, who shows off half-baked skills and drags the department through the MUD. Claire held Julian's hand, beaming.
Chief.
Jules isn't two-faced like some people. Everyone can vouch for him. Standing there, hand in hand, they looked like the married couple. And me, her actual husband. I was stuck in a security guard uniform outside the morgue. Julian threw a closed case file at me.
Take me to the body. I'll show you what a real pro looks like.
I can tell you what happened without even cutting her open. His cocky attitude made my skin crawl. Under Claire's death glare, I forced a smile.
Sure.
Show me the magic. Inside the morgue, Julian circled the body twice based on 2 scratch marks. He laid out exactly how the crime went down. The other 2 medical examiners, and I burst out laughing. While Claire gushed over him, my assistant Ruth couldn't help herself. Captain, doesn't this seem like total BS? How can he know all that without an autopsy? Dr. Mercer said this case connects to the one from 6 months ago. Claire cut her off, annoyed. Jules studied at a prestigious university overseas. Where'd Evan go? Some diploma mill? If Chief Langford and I hadn't pulled strings for him back then, he would have been fired for his lousy credentials. She wasn't wrong. My credentials didn't stack up to Julian's. That's because I joined the department straight out of college. I had way more hands-on experience than any PhD graduate. My resume was my weak spot, but it didn't matter in the real world. I laughed it off. All those fancy degrees just mean he's never actually worked a real case. Everything he said today is pure fiction. Claire, if you're going to back him up, let's get divorced. We talked about divorce before, but every time I saw how hard Claire worked, I fell for her all over again. I used to love how thorough and dedicated she was on every case. But now I was just done. After all the cases she'd worked, she knew better than anyone that you can't figure out a crime just by looking at a few wounds. Yet she bought Julian's garbage. She frowned. Are you threatening me, Evan? What makes you think this marriage gives you any leverage? Julian grinned. What? You're throwing a tantrum because I took your job? Grow up, man. Stop taking cheap shots from the sidelines. Chief Langford will decide if I'm right. Claire didn't say a word. In my defense, she just stood there with that dismissive look, like I was exactly the jealous loser Julian made me out to be. I smiled faintly. Here's the deal. Keep covering for him, and we're getting divorced.
Fine.
Let's do it. Jules is back anyway. I don't need you anymore. Claire spent the next few days running around, making arrests. To pad Julian's record, I brought over the divorce papers. She signed them without a second thought. After the divorce was final, I went to hand in my resignation. Before I could even get to Langford's office, another family showed up with a body. The victim's injuries matched the last case. Alarms went off in my head. I was about to call for an autopsy when Julian grabbed my wrist and yanked it down hard. Back off. A guy like you would just disrespect the deceased. Everyone, this is the medical examiner from that scandal. The creep who violated a body. He's been demoted to security guard. At Julian's prompting, the family, who'd just been begging me to examine their daughter, turned on me in disgust. So it was you, acting like some saint, offering to do an autopsy on my daughter? You targeted her because she was pretty, didn't you? That's disgusting. Don't you dare touch her. Not even now that she's dead. Julian scoffed and stepped up. Don't worry. I'll handle your daughter. I'm nothing like him. Make sure her privacy is fully respected. Seeing their cold stares, I was done. I was quitting anyway. This case wasn't my problem anymore. I turned to leave when Claire showed up with her team. Evan, Julian's about to start the autopsy. Get in there and assist him. I didn't demote you so you could slack off on the department's dime. Hearing that, Julian stuck out his foot. Clean my shoes, Evan. And get 2 basins of water for hand washing. You know the rules about keeping the autopsy room clean, right? Snorted. My pleasure. I grabbed the floor mop, shoved it in his mouth, and punched him a couple times until I heard his jaw crack. You psycho. Evan Mercer, stop. Claire pointed her gun at my head. Ice cold. Jules made you his assistant. And you attack him? You got a death wish? A chill ran down my spine. I couldn't believe she'd go this far for Julian. She'd always kept her cool at work. She wasn't the type to abuse her badge. Even a year ago when I got kidnapped, she just told the guy, go ahead. Pull the trigger. A medical examiner means nothing to this department. But once you shoot, there's no going back. This was the first time I'd ever seen her draw her gun. And it was for Julian. To save my own skin, I crouched down and cleaned Julian's shoes. He laughed and ground his heel into the back of my hand. The scrape tore my skin open. Claire didn't even flinch. You need to learn your place. You think you can measure up to Jules? Keep dreaming. It wasn't until she heard my bones crack that Julian finally lifted his foot to prove how good he was. Julian did the autopsy, right there in the hallway outside the morgue. Anyone with half a brain could tell. Those wounds came from a violent assault, but he wrote it up as a suicide. Ruth asked me quietly, Dr. Mercer, did you notice these recent cases connect to the one from 6 months ago? Yeah, but it's not my problem anymore, I said calmly, and headed for Langford's office. The day Langford signed off on my resignation, Julian flashed a brand new watch at me. No hard feelings, Evan, but it took you days, and you still couldn't crack a simple case. I walked in and wrapped it all up. That body they brought in yesterday, the richest man's daughter. They asked for you by name, but Claire gave it to me instead. I just wired over a fat check. Claire hung on his arm and smirked at me. If he'd done the autopsy, he probably would have gotten the whole department in trouble. What a hypocrite. I paused, remembering the family who'd begged me yesterday. So they were the richest family in town. Too bad Claire and Julian didn't steal my spot on that autopsy. I passed on it. I grabbed my stuff and kept walking. Well, congrats to you both. Outside the station, I passed a task force from headquarters. The lead official rushed over to Langford. This is the 4th rape case, and your department ruled it a suicide. Where's Evan, the one who did the first autopsy? Get him to help us on this serial case.
Now.
I got in my car, cool as ever, and headed for the airport. I was done cleaning up their mess.
Chap.
The whiskey at the airport bar tasted like iodine and bad decisions. I stared at the departure board.
F.
My hand throbbed. I looked down at the bandage covering the mess Julian had made of my knuckles.
T.
Evan Mercer? I didn't turn around. If you're with Corvesa PD, I'm technically out of jurisdiction the moment I step past. I'm not PD. A woman slid onto the stool next to me. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and a badge that didn't look like the tin toys Langford handed out. FBI. Special Agent Kalen. We have a problem, Dr. Mercer, she said, signaling the bartender for a water.
And
Not my circus, not my monkeys, I said, Dow. Kalen didn't smile. The body found yesterday. The suicide? That was Isabella Vance, Senator Vance's niece. I let out a low whistle. Langford is going to have. Langford is trying to bury it, Kalen corrected. He signed off on your replacement's report. Ruling. Suicide by hanging.
case.
Standard procedure for a cover-up, I muttered. The senator pulled strings.
He got a halt-ord.
My ex-wife pointed a gun at my head yesterday, I said flatly. I'm not going back there.
Kalen.
I looked at the folder. Then I looked at my.
I need an assistant, I said.
My hand is busted. Pick anyone you want. Ruth, I said, standing up. And I want double the. Kalen smirked.
Done.
The atmosphere inside the precinct was radioactive. As Kalen and Chief Langford was in the middle of the bullpen, sweating through his shirt, when the door slammed shut, heads turned. Mercer? Langford's voice cracked. What the hell are yo? Claire stepped forward, her hand instinctively drifting to her belt, though not H. Touch him, Kalen announced, her voice cutting through the room like a scalpel, and I'll have you up on federal obstruction charges so fast your pension will spin.
She.
Julian pushed off the desk, laughing. You're joking, right? I already determined the cause of death. Shut up, I said. I didn't shout. I just said it with the weight of someone who knew exactly where the bodies were buried. I walked past them, straight toward the morgue. Claire grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, desperate. Evan, don't do this. Julian's report is already filed with the DA. If you contradict him now, you'll humiliate the department. I looked at her hand on my arm, then up at her eyes. You pointed a gun at my head, Claire. You watched him crush my hand. You don't get to ask for favors. I shook her off. Ruth.
Get your gear.
We're working. Ruth popped up from her cubicle, eyes wide, grabbing her tablet. Yes, doctor.
Chief.
Claire spun around. You can't let him in there. I can, Kalen interjected, stepping between Claire and the hallway. And if you or Mr. PhD try to enter that morgue without invitation, I will arrest you. Now stand down. As the door swung shut, I saw Julian's face. The smirk was gone. The morgue was cold.
Familiar.
Isabella Vance's body lay on the stainless steel table. Ruth had already prepped the instruments. She looked at my swollen hand. Can you work, doctor? I'll direct. You cut. You've got good hands, Ruth. Better than you give yourself credit for. We began. I spoke for the recorder, my voice steady. External examination. Deceased is a female, mid-20s. Subject shows ligature marks around the neck consistent with hanging, initially. I leaned in close. Ruth, hand me the UV light. I swept the light over the neck. Julian had seen the bruising and called it a day. But under the UV, the story changed. Double furrow, I noted. There's a faint, secondary line of bruising below the main ligature mark. The angle is wrong for a hanging. It's horizontal, not vertical. She was strangled first, then strung up. Julian said the scratch marks were self-inflicted, Ruth whispered. Julian is a moron, I said. Look at the fingernails. Ruth, scrape under the left index nail. I see fiber transfer. Ruth carefully collected the sample. Blue synthetic, she murmured.
Exactly.
The victim was wearing red cotton. That's from the attacker. I moved down to the torso. Julian claimed there was no sexual assault. He said the lack of tearing suggested consensual, or nothing at all. He didn't check for chemical restraints. I pointed to a tiny, almost invisible puncture mark between her toes. Injection site. Ketamine cocktail. Paralyzes the muscles, but leaves the victim conscious. It's the same MO as the Jane Doe from 6 months ago. The doors to the morgue burst open. It wasn't Claire. It was Julian, his face flushed red, followed by Langford. Stop this right now. Julian shouted. You're mutilating my evidence. I didn't look up. Ruth, weigh the liver. I'm talking to you, Mercer. Julian marched up to the table. He reached out to grab the scalpel from Ruth.
Don't, I said.
Julian sneered. Or what? You'll clean my shoes again. I turned slowly. Agent Kalen? Kalen stepped out of the shadows of the prep room. Mr. Julian, you are contaminating a federal crime scene. He's faking it. Julian pointed at the body. He's making this up to make me look bad. I have a PhD from. We checked your PhD, Julian, Kalen said calmly. University of Veritas Online, based in a strip mall in the Cayman Islands. You paid $499 for it. You're not a doctor. You're a fraud. The silence that followed was heavy. Langford went pale. That can't be right, Langford stammered. Claire vetted him. Claire slept with him, I corrected, looking at the chief. There's a difference. Julian lunged at me. It was a desperate, stupid move. I sidestepped. He crashed into the instrument tray, sending steel clattering across the tile. Before he could recover, Kalen had him cuffed and pinned to the floor. Get him out of here, I said, turning back to the body. I have work to do. The autopsy report hit the department like a bunker buster.
Isabella Vance identité comité de suicide.
She had been paralyzed, raped, and murdered by a serial predator who had been operating in Corvesa City for a year. A predator I had tried to warn them about. Julian was in a holding cell, facing charges of fraud and obstruction of justice. But the killer was still out there. I was in the break room, icing my hand, when Claire walked in. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her uniform, usually pristine, was wrinkled. Is it true? She asked quietly. About his degree? Kalen has the transcripts. Or lack thereof. Claire sank into a chair. He told me he wanted to come back to build a life with me. He said I was the only one who understood his genius. He played you, Claire. He wanted the salary and the prestige. And you handed it to him on a silver platter. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I snapped. You were so eager to replace me, to prove that I was the problem in your life, that you let a monster walk into our department. You let a killer go free because you were too busy measuring drapes with your boyfriend. I was trying to lead, she yelled, her voice cracking. The pressure, the press. I thought he was the solution. You drew a gun on me. She went silent. You watched him stomp on my hand. My surgeon says I might get 80% mobility back if I'm lucky. That's my career, Claire. You ended it. I can fix this, she whispered. I'll resign. I'll take the heat. You'll have to, I said. But right now, I don't care about your career. The fiber analysis came back. It's a rare synthetic blend used in high-end automotive upholstery. Specifically, custom vintage restorations. Claire looked up, her cop instincts flickering back to life. There's a restoration shop on 4th. The owner, he was a witness in the first case. The helpful witness, I nodded. Who knew exactly where the body was found before we released the location. Let's go, she said, standing up. Sit down, I ordered. You're compromised. Kalen and the SWAT team are already rolling. You're riding a desk until internal affairs is done with you. Evan, please. Let me do one thing right. I looked at her. The woman I had loved for 5 years was gone. In her place was a desperate stranger trying to salvage a shattered ego.
No.
We watched the raid on the monitors in the command center. Kalen led the team. They breached the restoration shop. In the back, they found a soundproofed room. They found photos. They found the rope. And they found the guy. A quiet, unassuming mechanic named Gary. He didn't fight. He just smiled when they cuffed him. Is the medical examiner watching? Gary asked into Kalen's body cam. Tell him I missed him. The new guy was no fun. He didn't appreciate the art. I felt a chill, but it wasn't fear. It was the cold satisfaction of closure. Back in the interrogation room, Gary confessed to everything. He gave up the locations of 2 other bodies that Julian had ruled as accidental overdoses. The case was airtight. 2 weeks later, the fallout was total. Chief Langford was forced into early retirement. Julian was facing 5 to 10 years for fraud, impersonating an officer, and accessory to crimes due to negligence. And Claire. I was packing the last of my things from my temporary desk when she came to find me. She was in civilian clothes. She had been suspended pending a full review. They're going to fire me, she said. She didn't sound angry anymore. Just tired. Probably, I said. I signed the divorce papers. The original ones.
Good.
She hesitated. Evan, I know I can't apologize for what happened. But what are you going to do? Kalen offered me a permanent spot with the bureau. Consultant work. Travels a lot. You'd be good at that. I know. She looked at my hand. The bandage was smaller now, a brace supporting the fingers. Will you? Maybe. Maybe not. But I don't need a scalpel to see the truth. I picked up my bag. Evan. I paused at the door. Was it ever real? Us. I thought about the 5 years. The late nights. The way we used to balance each other out before the ambition and the resentment took over. Yeah, I said.
It was.
That's why it hurts so much that you sold me out for a cheap suit. I walked out of the precinct. Ruth was waiting by the car. She had a new badge on her belt, lead forensics assistant. Ready to go, boss? She asked. Not boss, I said, getting into the passenger seat. Just Evan. Where to? The airport. Properly this time. As we drove away, I saw Claire standing on the steps of the station, watching us go. She looked small, alone. I didn't look back twice. The city was behind me. The dead had their names back. And for the first time in a long time, the silence in my head wasn't heavy. It was peace.